vision possible for your life because you become what you believe.
Deep down, ask yourselves, who do you want to be?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Machitana Bongwana, welcome to it. It's In the Game with Mpixo P, the greatest. And today, I'm quite excited with the guest that we have because there's a lot that's been going on. And I know he's a man that can, unpack situations. And also, I know that, there's somebody that made people angry on Facebook by touching on the Toyota Cup. We also want to talk about that because I think sometimes it's very important to understand why things like this needs to come to Bloemfontein, and Marumo is also coming. I'm also going to touch on the Euros with him, just find out what's his overall view of this year's Euros. And ladies and gentlemen, let me not waste no time because Bangilizwe Msikinya is in the house. Good man, how are you doing? No, I'm cool. I'm excited with the time. But before talking about excitement, our new sports, arts and culture minister said, you know what, no more money spent on super fans. What do you think about that?
Ironically, I was reading about that in the car now as I was coming up. And I have mixed feelings, for a home minister to come out and say we're going to stop super fans. I wonder if it's truly effective because he said the reasoning, according to him, is artists and sportsmen and women need the money more, right? Which is a fair point. And for that decision to be made at ministerial level, I wonder just how much money is being spent on, how many of them is it? I think it's Mama Joy and Bota.
I'm not quite sure of the others.
Those two, right?
Yeah.
Give or take. How much money is really spent on them? Let's say maybe to the Rugby World Cup last year. I would say 100,000 off the top of my head for Oiwan. So 200,000, right? Rugby World Cup comes once every 4 years. For the decision to be made at that level, sports players need the money more. I wonder if it's not a grandstanding position that he's making for the purpose of social media, for us to talk about him. He's moving, he's doing great. Don't we actually need more money than the amount of money that's been spent on these people? I'm not saying that money is nothing, but I am saying how much of it was politics and how much of it was really true. The amount of money that they're going to save there, if you take it to, let's say, a PSL club that needs that money, how far is that money going to go?
Not really far.
But while at the same time, from a super fans point of view, I think we are the only ones in the country, in the world, who've got super fans that we pay for, that we take around the world. And is there anything wrong with us just doing something different that the rest of the world is doing? Should the English do it first, where they have these two super fans who go around the world? There's certain things that we take from other cultures, like mascots. Mascots come, they're huge in America. And there's money that's spent, it's a job for somebody, etc., etc. And then we'll have mascots, we'll start having mascots as well. We'll have dancers. Back in the day, there used to be Bloem Celtic dancers and whatnot, right? Should we first pick things up from other people before we can come up with our own things? Because I feel like the super fans thing is a South African thing. I don't think any other nation in the world has a super fans thing, right? And if you're a minister, I feel like you're in a good enough position to say, let's not take them out of our budget, but let's then force a sponsorship.
Okay.
Take them off our thing, but let's keep it. I don't see why we should.
But wasn't maybe at some point Castle, doing something with the super fans?
There was also those conversations that Castle were involved, So I'm not fully clued up on the ins and outs thing. But at face value, it seems more like a political statement more than anything else. And I think it would have been a cooler political statement to say, we are taking the super fans off our budgeting, but we have roped in sponsorship XYZ. They will run with it. You know, we will apply for funds from them. They will give us the funds, and the super fans will continue to go with our national teams wherever they go. Because I do think it's a pretty cool thing for us as South Africa and our brand to have those mascots, ambassadors, super fans around the world. I don't fully understand it. Why kill it?
Listen, I know somebody's thinking is provoked at home. That's all I wanted, you know, to provoke somebody's thinking like at home, because others are really super excited to say, listen, hey, Mama Joy, you're not going to the Olympics, whatever, you know, but the athletes, you know, that go to the Olympics, they might want to see one South African there and obviously see Mama Joy, you know, the country is backing you up. But
I mean, after games, you'll see Boba Bafana especially, they'll go to them during the AFCON. They'll go sing and dance with him. You know it meant something to the players too. So, yeah.
Look, also the Euros are happening right now. Sunday, you know, is the final day. I just want your overall view of this year's Euros. What did you make of this year's Euros?
I'm leaning more towards what Mbappe was saying. No, let me rephrase. I think the point he was making, that Euros are tough. They're not tougher than the World Cup though. Forget about that. Because if you look at South American teams and how they've competed against European teams, they beat European teams. Yeah. The European teams find it difficult to beat South American teams, period. But in generally speaking, the Euros are becoming a heck of a lot more tougher than in the past, because quality gap is being closed between the big clubs and the small clubs, the big nations and the small nations, right? You've got Georgia Sugudisa, Portugal now. Yeah. You've got Sweden is Sugudisa a lot of teams. You've got, was it Slovenia, I think it was? They're Sugudisa. So the gap has been closed, much like the AFCON. The gap between so-called small nations has been closed tremendously. And true to Europeans and you know, their outlook on life, when the going gets tough, they cry a lot. Like, oh, you have it better. And it's like, you know, with the amount of money that's been invested in football, with individual players, playing for big clubs, but they come from so-called small nations. Of course, the small nations were going to start showing up now and competing. You know, if you're producing Bo Haaland, you're going to show up and compete. If you're producing all of these players who come from these so-called small nations, you're going to show up and compete in a big way. And my overall outlook on it is, it's definitely gotten tougher than before. It's no longer a given. Historically, as it stands right now, you will still have your top 4 teams, which is what's happening now. Spain, who's Spain playing? Spain is playing France. England is playing Netherlands, right? You will have your general traditional top 4, as it would always happen in the World Cup as well. But those top 4, all of them, I mean, England had to come back from a 1-0 down in the very last minutes, right? Against, I think it was Slovenia, if I'm not mistaken. And who else isn't there worth talking about? France didn't find it easy to beat Portugal, who couldn't win their 2 previous games, you know, against so-called smaller nations. So, smaller nations are now showing up in a big way. In the next 2 to 3 Euros, you might find what happened in 2004, a country like Greece showing up and winning the Euros, you know. I think the next 2 to 3 Euros are going to be very interesting.
Look, I thought maybe one of these smaller nations will surprise everybody with how they played in the group stages. I thought one would pop up in the semis, but unfortunately this year it was not. But now that you said it, I believe definitely it's coming. We're going to see it in the next Euros. But listen, when we come back, one of the biggest things that happened in South African football that we need to chat about is the decision that Mamelodi Sundowns took, and how people are having conversations all over about this. I'm a bit confused myself about it in terms of, should he have been let go? Should They have kept him, because he won the league. I'm talking about Rhulani Mokoena, by the way, being let go by Mamelodi Sundowns, and Steve Kompela coming back. What is it that he didn't do in the past that he'll do different now that Rhulani is gone? And could he have been the reason why this whole thing be the reason why Rhulani, became head coach and Steve left, But apart from those, was your thinking of this decision for Mamelodi Sundowns and where could this take them? But before we get into it, let me just jump into a quick break, and when we come back from the break, we look into that. Let's move into a break. When we come back, we chat the whole thing, Rhulani Mokoena and Mamelodi Sundowns.
You become what you believe.
Dig deep down and ask yourselves, who do you want to be?
Create the highest, grandest vision possible for your life, because...
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to In the Game with Mpixo P, the greatest on Free State Online Network. And we still have Bangi the Billionaire. I wonder if he still calls himself that, Bangi the Billionaire, back in his radio times. But he's still in studio with us. And I want to poke him on the Mamelodi Sundowns decision to let go of Rhulani Mokoena. What were your thoughts when you saw that?
It was a very corporate move. It was more corporate than anything else. And it shows where Mamelodi Sundowns is in terms of how they view themselves, right? Mamelodi Sundowns does not view themselves as an ordinary PSL club. Yeah. They're a continental/global club now, right? And there's structures within a club that wants to perform and behave like that. I mean, I've mentioned previously in my social media post that when you look at somebody like the owner, Petrus Motsepe, he is the president of CAF, right? He's the biggest person in terms of football in Africa. In Africa, yeah. So he would very clearly want to compete with his club on a global stage, right? And so he expects his club to compete there. And it is not by any surprise that they've qualified for the Club World Cup, right? Yeah. So that's where Mamelodi Sundowns operates and thinks and views itself, right? Now, when you look at what do these clubs at that level, how do they perform, how do they behave? Go to the biggest club in the world, which is Real Madrid. And Real Madrid, you've got Ancelotti, who's the coach. But Ancelotti does not buy players. He's not responsible for buying players. Perez is, right? Perez is the one that has the vision and understanding. This is where Real Madrid needs to go, with the players, not the coach. Yeah. Soccer directors, sporting directors in these big clubs are, from a hierarchy point of view, they are the coach's boss. And it appears, I mean, this is nothing confirmed, but from reports that have come out, Rhulani kind of missed that step of understanding that Flemingberg was his boss. Yeah. His real boss at Sundowns was Flemingberg, not the Motsepe family. Motsepe family, yeah. He reports to Flemingberg. Flemingberg reports to the Motsepe family. That's the structure of any club that has a sporting director. And it is reported that Rhulani, he started creating, he got so big and powerful within the structure that he started creating a relationship between himself and Tloki Motsepe. I think I'm getting his name wrong, but the current president of Mamelodi Sundowns, Mr. Petrus Motsepe's son. And he started bypassing Flemingberg, his real boss, in terms of, his plans and ideas and conversations. And Mr. Motsepe Jr., entertained that. But now, when it came down to the wire, because the club understands where it's performing, where it wants to perform. When it comes down to the wire and decisions have to be made, corporate decisions have to be made, the club had to show Rhulani who is more valuable. And in their official statement, they literally state, and this is a statement that is signed off by the president of the club, they literally said that we as the club were not influenced by any individual within the organization to let go of Rhulani. We let go of him independently as the board. That is basically saying, we find that Flemingberg has more value than Rhulani. That's corporate language of telling you who's bigger here, who do we find more value, and why would they do that? It's because if you look into the role of a sporting director, which is something that I think a lot of people miss and don't understand, a sporting director is that person who's going to figure out which players are we buying, and why are we buying them, how long are they going to be around.
Yeah.
The coach will use them to win trophies. All credit to Rhulani. He won trophies, got them qualified to the Soccer World Cup, and they made, I think, from a revenue point of view, Mamelodi Sundowns last season made 115 million rands. But Flemingberg, on the flip side, his job and role is much bigger than that. Flemingberg is the type of person to be like, okay, cool, why are we signing Mpixo? Why are we signing Bangi? Now, it's because we need to sign players who are all either going to play for national team Bafana Bafana or play for the national team in their home countries. Why? Because come the World Cup, something that not a lot of people know, Chipa United in 2018 when one of their players went to the Soccer World Cup.
Yeah, that was Nigeria with the goalkeeper.
With a goalkeeper, right? You know how much money they made for him going to the World Cup? They were paid out 13 million rands, right? 13 million.
Yeah.
Now imagine Mamelodi Sundowns has 15 players playing for national teams. How much money are they making just for players going to play for 4 weeks? That's over 150 million rands that you make from that alone.
Yeah.
Just to have your players play during your off season, you make an income of 150 million. And that's Flemingberg's part of his roles, you know, creating that sort of a huge, tremendous pocket for income, right? And also selling players, acquiring players. That's his role. So that's why the board, who are interested in the bottom line and money, they will find him more valuable than Rhulani.
Yeah.
And now they'll get to the corporate aspect of things. Rhulani, okay, cool. When we gave you a contract, you had 3 objectives. One objective was win the league. Second objective was win a domestic cup. Third one was win a Champions League, CAF Champions League. He won the league only. He failed on the other 2. So technically speaking, that's a 33% success rate. And we are Mamelodi Sundowns. We don't... That is a failure in their eyes because they're operating at a different space and they know that they can get any other coach they want in the world. The other thing is South Africans need to realize where we stand as South Africans. South Africans is an incredibly great nation. I know from a political point of view, our political parties have ruined us and whatever, because that's all we know. But it's until you start traveling the world, you realize that South Africa is actually a better nation than at least 30% of the countries in Europe. I'd rather live in South Africa than live in 30% of the countries in Europe. South Africa is better than most countries in Africa. South Africa is better than most countries in South America. You know, so we are an attractive place and destination for coaches to come here. And Mamelodi Sundowns has the pocket.
Listen, talking about Mamelodi Sundowns having the pocket, they made a decision to bring Steve Komphela into the setup, who was part of the team previously before he moved back to Golden Arrows. You know, I want us to go into a break, but when we come back, I want us to also touch on that whole thing of Steve coming back. You know, if they could actually go, you know, anywhere in the world, get a coach. We saw what Kaizer Chiefs had done now, going, you know, getting a coach from abroad, and everybody's just excited. But you look at the coach, you're like, you know, this coach looks more excited than even the fans are. You know, it means South African football has got a reputation across the world that coaches would definitely want to come down here. And for years, coaches from abroad have been coming here and setting up their names, you know, just before they can, you know, push across Africa and maybe even the world. But let's take a break. When we come back, let's look into Sundowns bringing Steve Komphela in. Let's go to a break. When we come back, we're definitely chatting Steve Komphela coming in, replacing Rhulani.
You become what you believe.
Deep down, ask yourselves, who do you want to be?
Create the highest, grandest vision possible for your life, because
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to In the Game. We still talking all things Rhulani Mokoena leaving Mamelodi Sundowns, and now I just want to jump into Steve coming in. For Steve, he's been there. You know, now that you mentioned the corporate side of things, for him coming in, what does this mean for Mamelodi Sundowns and for Steve himself? Because we can't leave him out of this conversation.
I mean, I think the point I was trying to close right at the end there was that Mamelodi Sundowns can get any coach in the world. They're an attractive, South Africa is an attractive destination for any footballing head. We proved it in 2009, 2010, when we got a World Cup winning Carlos Pereira to come and coach Bafana Bafana, right? We also had, who was this? Carlos Queiroz, I wanted to say Alberto Pereira, yes, and Carlos Queiroz as well, who coached Man United, and he coached Real Madrid, and he coached Portugal. They all came here to come and coach Bafana Bafana. So we're in an attractive destination, and Mamelodi Sundowns has the budgets to do it, and they are aware of that, right? That they are because they're participating in that global space, they're aware of themselves and their position. Now, for them to get rid of Rhulani, I think it was also just staying true to themselves. That we can let go of you if we feel, one, you're not achieving on your objectives. Two, from a corporate point of view, you actually started overstepping when you started undermining Flamenberg. And in true football culture, that is something you don't do. That's how Jose Mourinho has been fired so many times. Because he has bosses that feel like, even if you're great, we'll fire you. And I find this firing of Rhulani, to be honest, as great for him. Emotionally, he may not feel that way at the moment. I saw an interview of him saying that he's confused and whatnot. Naturally, it will happen. But I find it great for him because he needed to learn some things. He needed to learn structure and hierarchy, right? There's certain things you don't overstep on. Perez will, Ancelotti will never overstep at Real Madrid and say, I want to buy my own players. No, this is the way of Real Madrid. As a coach, you play what we buy. You don't tell us. And that is what I think Sundowns is trying to teach him. And it's a great lesson for him to learn, because once he learns those sort of things, once he learns the boardroom politics, I think from there on, he will not be stoppable. He'll be unstoppable, right? Once he's learned this. Now, moving on to Steve Kompela coming in, Mamelodi Sundowns going there. I think it kind of circles back to, probably, this is me assuming, Mamelodi Sundowns policy is probably on some, we need to look from within our country before we move out, right? Kompela was here, we didn't quite give him his entire platform, right? We let go of him in order to make room for Rhulani, because it is said that Rhulani wanted that space alone and not necessarily to share it. And so they gave it to Rhulani. So why not go back to Kompela and give him a shot? Because similarly to Rhulani, Kompela has really relatively never won anything of significance with any team. Neither had Rhulani before he came to Sundowns. Rhulani's entire profile is built at Sundowns. So what's stopping the next coach coming in and doing the same? You know, building, because Sundowns is such a well-oiled machine at this stage. Rhulani walked into a well-oiled machine. You must remember, he walked into a legacy left by Mpixo, built by Mpixo. And he walked in and he managed to carry it well and do well with it. I think Mamelodi Sundowns are probably approaching this from that perspective. But we're such a great machine. We can get a local coach who will drive us well enough until they also, you know, we feel like, okay, you're not achieving on objectives, we're going to let you go. Irrespective of the fact that you might win 5 PSL leagues in a row. Mamelodi Sundowns is in that frequency now. You can win as many PSL titles as you want, but they're in a position where they can fire you for not winning the Champions League because they've won it before.
Most definitely. Look, you know. I like how you just unpacked it, but there are also two things very close to home that are happening now. One, Marumo Gallants, you know, coming in hard to making sure that they want to put it out there that, they're coming to bloom. You know, I know with the previous season they had issues with the Dr. Rantla Molemela not meeting the standards of PSL, you know, for them to play there, and they had to make a plan. But it looks like this coming season things might work out, you know, for them. And two, the Toyota Cup coming down to Bloemfontein, you know, the big question is how important is it for Bloemfontein to host, you know, such a cup? Kaizer Chiefs and what's the name of the club? Young
Africans.
Young Africans, you know, coming down to Bloemfontein, not Durban, not Cape Town, not Joburg, but Bloemfontein.
I think that question can be summed up, those two questions can be summed up sort of like in one, right?
Yeah.
It's a question on Bloemfontein and Bloemfontein's state at this current point in time.
Yeah.
I believe Bloemfontein is grown to a point where it is now of national importance, relevance within the entertainment, sports, arts and culture space, right? We've hosted Marumo Gallants coming to Bloemfontein. For me, is another one of those thumbs up that we're getting as a city, because you look at a city such as London. In London, there's what, 6 clubs, I think, in London alone. I think in there's a Merseyside derby with Everton and Liverpool as well, all being from the same area. And now, if we can have Marumo Gallants and Bloemfontein Celtic coming back, we are showing capacity that Bloemfontein is actually grown to a different level now. And our way of thinking, our way of life when it comes to Bloemfontein should be at that level, that let Marumo Gallants come, it's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop when Bloemfontein Celtic comes, and we'll have that. In London, you've got Arsenal and Tottenham. Arsenal, true Londoners will tell you the London team is Arsenal, but Tottenham is also there fighting for that space, you know. And it's going to make for an interesting life. And I think we should just start realizing as Bloemfontein people that we are really starting to become a nationally relevant city, which will indirectly start putting us as an internationally relevant city. And things like this are going to happen in nationally and internationally relevant cities.
So you wrapping that up even with the Toyota?
With the Toyota Cup, it's the same thing. Let the Toyota come here, because the Toyota, the sponsorship, Toyota South Africa put its money behind the stadium here, right, for its own reasons. The Free State Cheetahs and the occasional soccer matches. Now that they have a Toyota Cup, as a technical sponsor of Kaizer Chiefs, you take it to your own stadium. You're not going to take it to FNB or to Emirates Stadium. Emirates Cup will never be played at Toyota Stadium. It'll be played at the Emirates Stadium in Pretoria. Right? And so it's those reasons and logic. And then when you think about it, why in Bloemfontein? Not only because of the Bafana game, but historically, guys, let's not forget, we hosted Germany and one of the biggest games in the world, Germany and England.
England, yeah.
Played at the Free State Stadium. We hosted France at the Free State Stadium. We've hosted Brazil at the Free State Stadium, right? We've hosted major things there. So it makes business sense from a soccer point of view. We've earned the right to be nationally and internationally recognizable, relevant. And this Toyota Cup coming here for me is much bigger than these frivolous conversations we can have about a user. As a host city, that's what you want actually, as a matter of fact. Bring these things here. Bring these international. When Barcelona comes to South Africa, reusing. When Real Madrid comes, reusing. That's what it is. And Young Africa is one of the top 10 teams in Africa. Bring those big games here to Bloom. Reusing. I don't understand this conversation now. But reuser. To what end? If Basa reuse, then what's the positive of that?
The tagline is simple, #reusing. You know,
Reusing.
Bangi, thank you so much for coming through. Because of time, we have to cut it short, you know.
All right.
But listen, you've said enough, and we've heard enough. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's how we come to the end. And as always, to whom much is given, much is expected, and to whom much is expected, much is required. Every champion that is a champion today was once a contender, refused to give up. God willing, I'll see you next time.